I want to also thank almost everybody here who helped us in the early phase of this event to raise awareness, because many of you started to tweet and retweet what we were doing, and what we were doing was basically preparing for this event. In terms of the advancement of the slides, is that something I do, or? Okay, just fire it up. I think what one of the most important shifts in the social web is the move from experimentation to purpose-driven business. Here in Europe, and I have quite of a good view of what's going on in Europe. I lived here for the past 5 months and worked with startups, with businesses, with governments, and right now there's still a lot of experimentation. But where we're going is to strategic engagement. And strategic engagement means, if there is a company and a CEO who runs an organization with 500 or 5,000 people, that CEO can't say, hey guys, social media is it, fire it up. That won't work, because there is an expectation from a market, from a customer base, and that expectation needs to be fulfilled. It isn't about tweeting and having a fan page. We all learned in the past years that this is actually not going to make a significant impact, even though many people tell us you have to have a fan page, you must tweet. But if you don't have a purpose, if you don't have a business objective, if you don't know why you do this together with your customers and with your market, it will have no effect. And by the way, if you're tweeting, we have roughly 100 people outside who retweet your content if it's interesting. That means that you will probably have the most retweets ever today. So if you're tweeting, just go ahead. The people who do that are one of the most networked people in Europe, and that was why we got actually to 6 million impressions over the activities from the last 4 weeks. So what I want to share with you real quick is give you a quick insight into the development in the US of social media. And we drew actually a behavioral map between Europe and the US. I mean, in 2003, LinkedIn started, Facebook got live, Twitter came on 2006, and the democratization and demarcation between personal and business got very blurry in 2007 in the US, and that is something we're just experiencing here in Europe today. There's still many people have a very clear demarcation between their personal and their business presence in the social web. The campaign of Barack Obama in 2008 made a significant impact on the US business in terms of social media. 2009, businesses started to promote their social presence. So like we all did in the 2000 timeframe, or 1997, 98, we said now we're also in the internet. The same happens, visit us on Facebook, tweet with us on Twitter, and that is something we're just barely seeing here today. So the interesting part of that list is that we have actually kind of a view into the crystal ball. Where is it going? 2010 in the US was pretty much the year of social media for business, and there was one significant mark we saw that change. And that mark was that businesses didn't fear so much of negative impact or negative comments. They feared more that they would not be mentioned at all. Those companies who started to get into the social web very proactive did this because they knew if people are not talking about them, there is actually no conversation about that company. There's one result out of this, is that companies realized, mainly today, mainly this year, that their communication to the market is completely outperformed by what we call user-generated content. A press release, even from a large enterprise, for one press release, you will recognize between 100 and 200 comments and posts and discussions in the social web, meaning that what happened just 5 years ago, when a press release was issued and some communication from a company, that was dominating the information flow. Today, it's a feint of a sound in the background compared to what's going on in the social web. And companies realize that they are outperformed on their one-way street, and this is why that discussion about user-generated content became so important because these users and customers, people who like or don't like a company, have a voice now. And that voice is so loud and became louder and louder that companies need to recognize if they're not working with these people, which are their customers, then they're actually failing in their business. So in 2011, the mid-market, meaning the small, medium businesses, became, for the first time, actually strategic, something we're not seeing here in Europe pretty much at all. We did, with our 30 strategists and 200 or almost 300 volunteers, we made a very deep look into what's going on the business side in Europe, and the mid-market is actually not ready yet. So as I said, this is sort of a look into the crystal ball. We know it's going to happen, and the earlier we know and the better we know, the better we can react. Okay? Next slide, please. So what we did a couple months ago was a comparison between social media engagement measured by so-called sentiments. That's done by social media monitoring tools. There are a variety of it to do that. And profitability of the companies. That's a report we will actually publicly issue in the next 2 months, so you're probably the first to even see it. On the left-hand side, you see companies who are engaged in the social web, who oftentimes mention as they do it good, they do it well, this is how they do it, and their profitability side. And then on the right-hand side, you see companies who are not engaged. The only engagement comes from their user base, from their customers, from their employees maybe, and with no response from the company at all. And then we see a lot of losses. The figures show that these companies in aggregate make $60 billion in loss, just not existing in the social web at all. On the left-hand side, $30 billion in profit, highly active, very engaged. And the sum of all this is the left-hand side companies realize what's going on in the market very early on, react as good as they can, and clearly when you see the names, they're far from perfect. But what they're doing, and this is what we consumers all want, they at least react, they at least try to get in touch with us or allow us to get in touch with them. I mean, from a customer perspective, how stupid may that be that they allow us to get in touch with them? I mean, we're the customer, we're the most important asset. And so this shows pretty good, when we go into more details, which I can't do today, how impactful social media is to those kind of businesses. Thank you. So what we realized, all in all, that the democratization of influence, which is the title of my new book, also coming out end of this year, is actually happening on a global scale. Democratization of influence means influence isn't any longer dedicated to large-scale leaders, political leaders or corporate leaders. Democratization of influence means that the population have a huge amount of influence in what's going on. We see this in Egypt, we see this in companies, we see this in customer bases, we see this basically across the line. Now, if we think of a global scale, that doesn't mean this is only tied towards large enterprises. This is also tied towards the shoe industry in Italy, who is selling just locally today instead of getting at least across Europe. Next slide, please. So what we did, instead of telling you how cool this is and what companies could, should, would do with the social web, we decided 6 weeks ago, we want to actually show how it works. So I asked a couple of our alumni to work with me on a social media assessment for the European market, which was, for all of us, including myself, a first, because we have never engaged in a project that size, even though we did very, very large-scale projects. But 500 million people country is kind of a big deal. We got 30 people together, and what they did was actually analyzing what's going on in Europe today and helped us with a strategy to develop what we can do together. And clearly, there's a lot we can do together. Okay? So the preparation was very focused on business and business relevance. Our focus was sort of the key word for the whole initiative, because the sheer size would not allow us to go into great breadth or width. We crowdsourced basically a strategy. We had a team of 30 plus additional 250 contributors. Roughly 1,000 pages of resource were created in 6 weeks. We tweeted about this, we asked people, and we had a reach of, as I said earlier, 6 million who contributed and helped and got insights and inputs. And that is what social media at the end is all about. It is clearly not about marketing. Media has no effect in social media. And that is something most of the companies in Europe still need to learn. Social media is about social, it's about engagement. And what happened is we looked at the 3 most important industries per country, at the perception of social media, and the business opportunities. Okay? So job creation was clearly our overarching goal. But we also understood we cannot direct companies to create jobs. Jobs cannot be created, business can be created. So growth is the most significant driver for job creation. Job creation on its own doesn't exist. Okay? So what we did is we looked at all kinds of inputs we had from that relatively gigantic research, and we found a couple common items. So we looked at the various industry segments. We looked at the luxury industry in France, which is pretty big, the shoe industry in Italy, orange farmers in Spain, and so forth. And we had a common pattern. Most of those companies are still not today used to think of Europe as one nation. They're still selling just in France. However, other countries, including the US, sell their oranges from Florida even into Spain. I don't understand why should I buy, even though I live in America and I love the country, but I don't see why I should buy Florida oranges in Berlin if I can get them from Spain. The logistics, however, is so old and so structured that this poor farmer in Florida can't sell the oranges even to Berlin. So social media can help all these mid-market companies to strengthen their business, to grow their business just within Europe, within that one single digital market where we actually can buy and sell in one currency. We have pretty much legalized or homogenized all the legalese, so there is no reason not to. But if you ask a mid-market company, they would tell you, I don't have the funds to do all that. So helping those companies is one of the biggest impacts social media can do, because we can reach more business through export by being present in a market which is today available to 230 million European people in Facebook alone. So the results of the strategy was to actually start building and educating strategists around Europe who can do that job with and for those companies. Creating an initiative for thousands of people who actually engage in this social media effects, understanding it isn't about media, it isn't about marketing, but it's about, in this case, export. We choose to run the export side as number 1 because this is where we probably have the fastest success. We could do this probably within a matter of months to help people understand how they get their products from a country, from a local business, to at least European-wide business. And we decided that probably the greatest way to expose that success is by building a competitive platform where we feature those companies who show that growth, feature those companies who is active in that social web. And the way easily to do that is have their customers vote for those companies and say, this is what we want to do, this is a cool company, that's a cool company, yeah, we're behind this one. And that will be probably driving more businesses into social media than all the fingers saying you got to do this, otherwise you're dead. Because one thing have all business owners in common who are just even mediocrely successful, they're all competitive animals. So if we show them a platform where they can compete with each other across Europe, we believe that would be probably a very good thing to do. Okay, I think that was the last slide. Was it? All right. 1451, very cool. Thank you very much. Any questions?